Good afternoon, man. Happy Thursday to everybody. Hopefully, everybody had a good Friday Eve. And man, you could be anywhere, but you decided to join us. And so we're definitely appreciative, man. Unfiltered Kings and the Queen podcast as well. Men and women talk to each other, not at each other. I almost had it backwards. When we talk to each other, not at each other, man, we try to take those polarizing topics, man. We're always versus each other. We try to break it down and get an understanding. So as you guys can see tonight, I'm a little light, but I'm gonna try to hold it down. We had some technical difficulty but it won't hold us down, man. UKQP, we always going to try to pivot. We're always going to try to be here for our followers, man. And that's some of the reason tonight, man. We want to kind of incorporate into the show. As you can see, the name of the show episode tonight: you, them, or the enemy. Who's the culprit? Right? Is it me? Is it her? Is it the enemy? Is it a little bit of both? We're going to kind of dive into it, man. We're going to try to identify. A lot of times it's easy to point that finger, as they always say, but as old that is say, watch those that's pointed back at you. And so we're going to try to break it down, man. We're going to look at all three levels tonight. So, of course, as always, we want you to join in. Keep those comments coming. Definitely, I'm going to need you tonight to join in as a part of the conversation. But also, man, throughout the night, man, I want to celebrate you guys. If you've been rocking with us from season 1 and before, we're going to season 4 now. 4 seasons, man, that you guys have told us whether that's one episode or all episodes. So throughout tonight, man, as I see some of our followers, our new timers coming in, man, I may kind of bring you on, talk to you about why you join in, what do you get out of it? Because look, man, we wouldn't be nothing without you guys. And we wanted to take an opportunity to say, man, we greatly appreciate you guys following us, whether that's 5 minutes, whether that's all throughout. Big shout out. I want to just get some shout outs off the top. Big shout out to my brother's counselor. Interesting dynamic. And I talked to my brother about this last night. You guys keep my mother and you all's prayers. But I talked to my brother about this last night, and he was saying that he has a counselor that's not of his denomination. And they were talking about the challenges of counseling him as a Black man. Well, believe it or not, Calvin shared with me that he was able to share with his counselor UKQP podcast. And his counselor came back and told him, like, just some of the conversations that we have has helped him understand him as just a Black man. Some of the, the nuances that we just go through and whatnot. So shouts out, first of all, to Calvin Mental Wellness. Y'all know how I feel about that. But, man, I wanted to kind of shout that out also, as UKP is doing some great things out here, man, and people are receiving the conversation. That's what we want, man. We don't do it for the likes. We don't do it for the post, but, man, we're glad that, we have some people that are actually chiming in. Also, man, to be continued, UKP has some big breaking news here that's coming. And so I'm going to just drop that teaser right there. You're going to have to keep following along, man. When I tell you God will make room for your gifts, we're definitely excited about that. And so you'll be hopefully hearing about those things as they continue to go. I want to shout out Marlon Rollins. This young man here, a wealth of knowledge. Let me just leave it at that. Hopefully, if you're joining us on YouTube, Marlon, we're grateful for you to be here, man. Again, I appreciate all the knowledge that you drop. Man has his hand in real estate. Some of the history of, of this great city of Dallas. And so dropping jewels, have done things quietly in the background and on the forefront. And just to be able to sit and just gain so much knowledge where he's just dropping jewels for free. I'm glad and honored that if he's watching there on YouTube, I want to thank him for being able to join in. You guys, like I said again, make sure that we are in different spaces now. We're not just on social media. We out there on Spotify. We're over there on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. I don't know if anybody still listens to it, but guess what? We there. So don't worry about it. We're there. We on YouTube. Of course, we on Facebook. We have our own page. You guys, please like, share, follow. Let's help grow this community. It helps us in so many ways that you could not imagine. And so even one like, even one post, even one share we greatly appreciate it. And so again, catch us out there on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, of course, YouTube. Even if you can't catch it right now live, it will be out there in the next few days or so. So let's get to our topic. And again, man, I'm gonna need you guys' help tonight. So, kind of chime in. We just ask that you keep it respectful. And again, man, this is also in culmination of an appreciation. Like I said, we're going on season 4, right? Some of you guys have been with us since season 1. Some of you are newcomers as early as season 4. So throughout the night, as you guys are kind of jumping in, I really want to shout you out and personally thank you and kind of get some of your input on the show tonight. And so here we go, man. Unfiltered Kings podcast. The podcast where men and women talk to each other, not at each other. You, them, and the enemy. So let's just start with the obvious, right? Usually when something goes wrong, our instinct is to do what? Quite naturally, we point the finger, right? Whether it's at work, it's the boss that don't support me. It's the coworker, right? They looked at me wrong. The system is broken. And even sometimes, even in our family and friends, right? We can't have conversations. The other person's fault. Why did they do this? They made me feel that way. And so we're going to title this section The Blame Game, right? And you guys know that I always talk about mental intelligence. And it's one of those things, I try not to go so exhaustive in it, but it's those 4 pillars, right? Self-awareness, right? You got to identify the emotion. What am I feeling? Then there's self-regulation. I have to own that feeling, right? And then it's showing empathy. Let me try to understand the other person. And then at the end of it, it's about what type of relationship do I want to leave to help me govern what type of emotions that I have. And so if you notice, really in the blame game, man, when you automatically point the finger, what do? You kind of skip those first 3 steps and you're already ready to identify, hey, this person don't like me, I don't like them. And that's the relationship that's built. And even sometimes in our, this can fit any relationship. Like I said, a co-worker, boss, mother, son, husband, wife, boyfriend, and girlfriend. We usually throw emotional intelligence aside, no understanding, no self-awareness of what we're feeling, why we're feeling it. And we go straight basing that relationship on the fact that if I feel angered, then guess what? This relationship has to identify it, and I'm going to have to show that. But that's one of the dangers, if not many things, of the blame game, right? It's the fact that there's no thought put in. It's more reaction of just that initial emotion. And so what if when we did this, what if we reflected and asked ourselves, what role did we play into it, right? See, what usually happens, we set our own rules in the United States of our brain, right? Like I set my value system, I set my understanding, my pros, my cons, my boundaries. So all of that is set up here. And not oftentimes do we think that other people don't know them or don't know them clearly, right? And so all of what I have up here is justified. I think it, I thought it, I set the rules, I wrote the boundaries, I voted on everything, so it's all me. It's the United States of James up here, right? But I think in the first stage, when we're talking about the blame game, when we're trying to sort out you, them, or the enemy, it is very healthy to ask, what part did I play? That first part of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, well, the first 2, self-awareness and self-regulation, it kind of allows us to take ownership. And here's the beautiful thing about it. Even if it's not our fault, I can still take advantage and accountability of how I react to that person. And look, we've all been guilty, right? And so on the Unfiltered Kings and Queen podcast, it's like we always say, it's not about a gender, right? I've been guilty of it. I know other people have been guilty of it. But the reality of what we're trying to do is get some solutions, right? And so when we ask ourselves that question, what part did I play? Okay, we're going to talk about when the other person did us wrong. We'll talk about that in another section. But even in the beginning, when we haven't identified that, right, and that emotion is right there, even if we take the time and ask ourselves, what role did I play? Well, now we can do some self-reflection. Self-reflection hopefully brings on self-awareness. And when self-awareness is there, we are hopeful that at that time we can now start regulating through some of those emotions, right? Even if it's someone else, and definitely if it's us, right? We want to be able to make healthy decisions. Um, Self-reflection is not about the blame, it's all about self-awareness. Like I said again, sometimes we're the culprit and we don't even know it. And I think that's more dangerous. We always talk about that, is that there are times where we are so right, um, that we don't intentionally try to do wrong. It's just the fact that we're hung on the fact of United States of James Hester, right? So I can't be wrong. And I would always argue that that was probably even more problematic, because usually if you're wrong, unless you're a narcissist or something, I digress, there is a chance to identify right. But what happens when you already think you're right and you dug in? Right? And again, keep in mind, we're not taking this in the context of man and woman. We're just talking about in any capacity, right? Whether that's the boss at work, the boss did it, he's hating on me, or the home girl, well, she known me for years. Why would she do me that way? Even in a relationship, you're supposed to know what I like. Why did you do that? Again, going to that part where we reflect on what part that I play into it. If nothing else, it helps us take a breather. A lot of time when that blame game, we've already, like I said, we skipped a step 4. We don't reintroduce this relationship based off that raw emotion, and we haven't filtered through our part. And then step 3 of emotional intelligence, what about empathy, right? So I think that will be good to actually reflect on. And it was something I was doing in my research, and I'm just glancing at my note, you guys, again. We'll be back greater than ever, man. Like I said, we have great things coming your way for UKQP, in huge part because of you guys. And again, we're going to continue to thank you guys. Make sure you join in, drop your comments and things of that sort, because we cannot do it without you guys. And us going on season 4, we want to celebrate you guys. And so sometime when we're the culprit, maybe we didn't speak up. So I'm going to take these a step by about a time. And like I said, we're going to get to them. I think that's the one everybody want to focus on. Well, what about it's them? And I can tell them, well, no, we'll get to them. We're looking at us, right? And I think this is so important when it says, maybe we didn't speak up. See, the danger of having this world up here where all my rules, my regulations, my boundaries, the whole 9 yards, do I always effectively communicate them with my audience, with my external community, right? Or do I impose that they should automatically understand, right? Because if someone offend me and I haven't told them my thought process, my viewpoint on that, my stance on that, then that could be a quick misunderstanding that we blow up in risk of a relationship, right? In any capacity, like I said, all because I kept my voice in here. And how many times have you all been with someone, around someone, where they had a full conversation here, but a full expectation of you out there, right? And so the more and more you're getting lost, the more and more it's about, are you validating what's up in here? And when you don't, that's just justify those emotions that has been piling up. So sometimes we got to look at ourselves. Did I voice that, right? Or did I infer that? Did I imply that, right? And even just about communicating, right? I maybe communicate, but did I communicate it effectively, right? And so keep in mind that a lot of this don't have to be malicious. Some of this can come without just 20% imperfection, right? Hey, I didn't know how to articulate that, right? As a creator, I do it all the time. In my mind, I'm down the street, around the corner, up the highway, and I'm already heading towards so-and-so. But a lot of times around me, I have to remember, well, that don't mean that everybody around you a creator, and they may still be back there. Well, that's on me. I have to verbalize that. I have to slow down and make sure that I'm communicating, but I'm communicating effectively. Maybe we try to avoid conflict. This is a huge one, right? We try to avoid conflict. Well, we just want to keep the peace. Men, what are we taught? Those who else are married, happy wife, happy life, or something like that, couldn't be no further from the truth, right? Loyalty over love is a very dangerous thing. And so sometimes we justify it, which a clinical term for that is we downplay. That's not the, oh, you good. Now we know we have a problem with that, but just to keep the peace or we don't want to avoid conflict. No, conflict resolution is needed in any type of relationship. My supervisor and I, we sat down today, had a very positive conversation where it involved conflict resolution, right? So to avoid it altogether is causing unnecessary pain even on ourselves and unfair expectation on the other person who you're in the relationship with or who you're talking with. And so sometimes we justify it by self-reflection by downplaying it. Hey, and I'm just going to keep the peace. I'm just not going to say nothing. No, that's not going to do anything, because what happened when it happen the next time? What happened when it build up, right? Now we want to bring all that from the past up, and guess what? We don't caught the other person off guard. Maybe we stay too long in a role that no longer serves us. Now, this one right here, we can stay here all night. So I'm going to read that one again. It says, maybe we stay too long in a role that no longer serves us. I always say one of the biggest mistakes in life is managing something that we should have gotten over and trying to get over something that we shouldn't manage, right? So that's why reflecting on ourselves is first. Hey, did I view this long term? And this was just for a season. You know, Tyler Perry always says that, my dear, am I viewing this as lifelong? But no, that was just a summer season. Great times, nothing negative, but that was just a season. Or am I mistaking this a season when really, hey, that's supposed to be there long term, right? Those unfair expectations we sit there with ourselves, and that's why I think tonight's topic, you, them, or the enemy, a lot of times we think we're going to rush in and find out who done it first, but what does that process looks like? And again, that's what emotional intelligence is so important. Self-awareness first, right? Did I misrepresent and misassign the person, right? We do that a lot of times at work, right? Our supervisor is not there to be our friend. They are there to manage the greater good of that company. They have our to talk to. So just because we have a cool relationship with it, well, we mismanage that, right? Because now when it's time for them to hold us accountable, well, guess what? Oh, they tripping. They done change. Well, we do the same thing in some of our friendships, right? Some of our relationships. Everything peachy and door, and we crafted where everything is happy-gory and whatnot. And now here's the come from some tough conversation, right? Some constructive criticism. And we never dealt with that, right? And again, we got some longevity in, and we don't really talk about this, but now you have to smoke clears. We have to talk about those issues, right? How do we actually handle that? Did we misdiagnose that we're building some long term, but we're operating, we're functioning like we're just in seasons, right? We're just going to deal with it right there. Well, that season eventually ends, right? My boy Boston just shouted us out, man. Shouts out to Boston, man. If you haven't done so already, follow the Fire Spitters, the Fire Sessions, man. That's my good brother, man, from another man. He has a great podcast with a wealth of information, man. In all honesty, we try to model a lot of the things that we do here. And so he just shouted out, man, he's busy, but he's still supporting. So again, man, as we're talking about this topic, you, them, and the enemy, like I said, man, we want to take the time. We do not take for granted. I don't care if it's one of you on, man. When you all give us the support that we look for, it's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, man, that it's not just kind of popping up and talking ramblessly and hoping that, you know, something sticks against the wall. So to each and every one of you, whether you can watch it live, whether you're watching on Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube right now, we just want to say a million thanks to you guys. If there's anything that you think we can do to improve, look, it's all about you. I always say, hey, give us the best idea in the room. And so we want to be a platform where we're saying we're truly with you and we're having the conversation together. So shouts out to Boston again. That's the Fire Sessions, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere on social media, man. He has some fly stuff. And then also, if you see the hashtag, you see it. My boy is pretty much a comedian too, man. So, you know, if you can search you see it hashtag, I think he's been had that on lock since the days of Paul Quinn. So shouts out to my boy. But yeah, man, the main thing about it is that sometimes that misdiagnosis and that rushing off, and that's why I love talking about emotional intelligence, can get us off on the wrong foot when it comes to trying to find out who's the culprit, right? If you're being just transparent and honest with yourself. Sometimes there's a blend in there, but what we find is that it's always good just to start with self, right? What part did I play? And that's not always the thing. I talked about it, I think, in season 2. I believe it was season 2 where I did an episode where I was talking about my divorce, where, yeah, she cheated, right? That I didn't cause that, right? But after I went to counseling, afterwards, I realized that there were some things that I could just do better as a person, right? So I could have just taken the time and just focused on her. Well, that's the easy answer. She cheated. But having the opportunity to say, what part did I play? Not even in the cheating, but what part can I play to better myself? I was able to identify a lot of things that made me the man that I am today. And so, man, at the end of the day, it's such a more of a rewarding path to take, to stay out of that blame game, right? Look at self. And then more importantly, if it is self, then guess what? Let's take some accountability as emotional intelligence tells us to. Now the favorite one that I think everybody's gonna like. What if it's them? Let's talk about them. The people around us, right? Co-workers, friends, family. They absolutely can contribute to our stress and our setbacks, right? Toxic behavior, poor communication, lack of accountability can create chaos, right? So we're not saying just because we have emotional intelligence within ourselves, that means things gonna be peaches and roses to everyone around it. What do you do when you run across someone who has low emotional intelligence, right? Most people think that's an insult, but that's a reality, right? If everyone had high emotional intelligence, this world would be peaches and creams, right? But what do you do? What do you do when you work with a supervisor who has a power complex, right? Vibrating low emotional intelligence. What do you do? It's them, right? I've checked myself. What role did I play in? I've self-corrected. Now I'm truly arriving at that last pillar of emotional intelligence. Let's see what type of relationship can I have with that. What if it's your friend, right? What if it's your frat brother, sorority sister? What if it's your wife of 10, 20 years? What if it's your husband of 4 years? You kind of just creeping around that corner. What do you do when the other person in whatever relationship you're in is actually them? Now let's talk about some of these things. Toxic behavior, right? What if they've developed a toxic behavior? What do you do with that? What does that look like? Well, still, we got to look within ourselves and ask ourselves, how do we navigate that first? Because again, that doesn't give us permission, right? What do they say? I'm gonna keep the same energy. Nah, that usually don't fix anything, right? And so it's important for us to identify, not only being able to just point the finger, okay, it's obvious them, but it still is becoming up to me. How do I respond now? Right? Because at the end of the day, you can't change people. If people double down and they want to have that toxic behavior now, what do you do? What does that look like? What about poor communication? Man, ain't that something? Everybody use words, right? That, for the most part, if you speak English, that's the language you speak. Everyone understand words, but that doesn't mean that you're communicating. A lot of times we can use words and still be poor at communicating. And here's the thing again, little caveat. This is not indicting anyone. This stuff just comes with us just being imperfect, right? So that's something that we have to actually think about. What if someone comes from a surrounding where there was poor communication? They learned it just like their name, right? They learn how to say and do all the right things, or they got the position right as a supervisor and whatnot. And now you have entered into a relationship with them. What do you do with that, right? You can identify that, but does that give you a justification of poorly communicate with them? And then finally, lack of accountability. Again, throw all this away. Anytime, whether it's you, them, or the enemy, it's always you, right? It's always you. And even if it's them, well, you made them do it. There's no accountability. How do you really handle that? Right? So let's ask ourselves some questions. Have I clearly communicated my needs? I was talking to someone a couple of nights ago, and we was talking about the beginning of the relationship, and I was telling them I don't like in the beginning of the relationship where I think we were talking about on the podcast where in dating, everything is scripted. Everything is meant to be nice, meant to be fluffy, right? It's meant to have a good time because you're really selfishly looking for a return investment. And usually on both sides, right? For the most part. But it takes away clearly communicating our needs, right? And a lot of times, do we even know what we need? Have we sit down? We talked about a podcast before where people who get out of a relationship, they jump into another one. Get out of a relationship, they jump into another one. Can we sit with ourselves and clearly identify what we need? Or do we think a lot of our wants is our needs and we're trying to demand those wants out of other people? And so these are some questions that we asking ourselves. Again, this is when it's on them, right? We know it's on them. How do we get here? The number one question, how we clearly communicated what we're needing out of them. Have we clearly identified what we need of our supervisor? Mr. Supervisor, I need for you to not put me out in front of everybody. Can you take me in the room? We can sit down and talk one-on-one. Mr. Supervisor, I need you to show me where I made a mistake, not just tell me and blindside me so I can self-correct on myself. Miss Girlfriend, have you identified, hey, I need my downtime when I'm coming in. It's not that I don't listen to you. I just need my downtime to get my thoughts together. Mr. Boyfriend, hey, when you do that, this makes me feel this way, right? Do we clearly set those needs to give an opportunity? Because there's a lot of time when you're in those high emotions, usually none gets resolved in because it's too late, right? So that time that we're scripting the fun and all of that in dating, which is nothing wrong with it, we have to make sure that we're inserting those real communication skill sets in there where we're setting those needs, right? We're being direct with it. Hey, this is what I need in this situation. And are you going to get them all? No, right? You're not going to sit there and tell your whole life story. But everyone, for the most part, has a value system. And are we clearly communicating those needs to those people? Because again, coming in, it don't make them a bad person if they have some of these qualities that we're talking about. But we do need to identify if this is something, again, seasonal or long-term. Business-wise, like I said, relationship-wise, or even, at your job. Number 2, have I set boundaries? One of the biggest mistakes I think we make when we're talking about boundaries is that we always identify those boundaries as those reactive boundaries that we set. In other words, those boundaries that simply because we don't want to get hurt again, right? Well, think about this. Quick analogy. When we drive our car, the only thing that we do, let's just say the only thing we do, we get in an accident. The only thing we do next time, say I'm going to drive slow. Is that a real solution? To put that ban on, I'm going to just drive slow? Well, that's not necessarily a real solution if you're on the freeway, right? It's not a real solution if you are in traffic or something like that, right? So a lot of time when we think about boundaries, we are talking about those things that are preventing us from, because we don't want to feel that hurt again. And those boundaries are okay, but the boundaries in this context is understanding my limits. Like with me, I'm a creator. When my head gets jumbled up, because I'm always creating, I'm always writing, whether it's a poem, a song, or something, I'm always seeing and hear words in my head. So my boundary has nothing to do with the hurt and pain that I experienced in my past. My boundary knows that when I cannot think and I'm not able to create, I have to remove myself. Has nothing to do with supervisor, mama, daddy, cousin, whatnot. I know that I'm no good in that space until I can get back to where I can kind of see everything, kind of the wheels turning, so to speak, right? So when we're talking about those boundaries, we're not necessarily talking about those reactive boundaries. We're talking about those boundaries that inquire us to go back to our segment 1, when we've asked ourselves, we've gotten to learn ourselves. You know what? Like I tell my son, only one rule I've had with him in his life: don't lie to me. That has been the boundary, right? Not because he did anything wrong. Well, if you lie to him, I don't know how to help you. And it may be a time that you just need daddy to come get to it to get through it, right? So those are the type of boundaries that we have to set for self, not those boundaries we set because this person hurt us, this person wronged us. Do we set those boundaries so then when we meet someone, let's say, with a lack of accountability, Hey, if that's a boundary to me, hey, I like being in a space where everyone's accountable because that's a safety thing, right? Have we set those boundaries for ourselves so that when we do identify these in other people, and again, it's them, we can articulate that. Why is that important? These questions are important so we don't just deal with the emotion of it. That's the most dangerous part when you just have emotion, and it's really like you got two flints and you're just striking against each other. You're not putting out the fire. It's only a moment of time before that thing explodes. And one last question, you guys, before we move to the next segment. And again, if you just joining us, you, them, or the enemy, who's the culprit? We're talking about, man, look, in any type of partnership, whether you're at work, co-workers, business partners, relationship, husband, wife, mama, daughter, in those relationships, we're trying to identify what went wrong. Do we just arrive with all these feelings and these emotions and we draw this line in the sand, or are we able to process through them? And so we saw in segment one, the first thing we should do is identify, check ourselves. What role did I play? Right? Even if we didn't do the wrong act, we still good to check ourselves so that we may not respond probably in a way that's going to put gas on that fire. And then we're in segment two where we talk about, well, it's them. Like we went through all that, right? We did the 4 pillars of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulated. We thought about them. Now we're trying to act upon preserving the relationship, but it's just them. They toxic. They don't know how to communicate effectively. So we were identifying what are some questions that we asked. And that first one was, do I communicate my needs? It's unfair to hold someone accountable when I haven't told them. And we talked about, remember, that imaginary world, United States of James Hest. I know what I do. I know what I like. I know what I don't like from years of experience. And here comes this new person. And they're supposed to be a full citizen of the United States of James Hest. They're supposed to know all rules, laws, and regulations. And if they break one of them, they're sentenced to a lifetime of banishment. That's not realistic, right? Have you set boundaries? We talked about the difference in boundaries, not those reactive boundaries where we're trying to make sure we don't get hurt. Those boundaries based on us learning ourselves so we can teach other people how to treat us. See, you teach people how to treat you. And that's that problem with that part we talked about when I'm going to keep the peace and whatnot. Even if people try to gaslight you and say, well, you just arguing, well, you just said, well, not really, right? Because sometimes you have to have conflict to test the ability to conflict resolution, right? If you do not have true conflict, then I'm not saying just go in there and get into it, but you have to have conflict so you can learn how, when it comes to conflict resolution, how do we handle this? And even if you get it wrong, because like I said, 20% of everybody, we're just imperfect. But at least you have something to where you're learning that and you're learning how to engage that in a healthy way. But my final question on this part, question answering ourselves. We know it's the other person that did wrong. Am I expecting someone to change without giving them the tools or the feedback? Now, I want to be very clear with this. We talked about this on another podcast. We are not talking about being responsible for other people like children, right? I love James Jr. He's 22 years old. Shout out to my boy, Angelo State University, man. Big Junior in the house, man. But I can't even make Junior do right. I can provide him the tools, right? But ultimately, I have to be capable of giving the tools in this relationship, because whatever relationship that is, I'm 50% engaged in it. That makes sense? That other person is not only responsible for that relationship. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying we're supposed to give the tools to make this person a good person. No, everybody's supposed to go out and get their own knowledge and bring it back and become better people for self. Thereby, we can be better people for each other. But what I'm saying, there are times where we can identify some things in our mate, like our supervisor. My supervisor can identify some things to me more than other people, because guess what? We're in a working environment 8 hours a day. We're closer than probably other people. So there are tools he can provide with that other people can't. If you're in a family member, there are some tools that in that family, because you know the intimate thing that you can bring to the table. My brother and I was talking about this last night. There are things that we can bring to the table that's better than outside people. Friendships, right? 20, 30, whatever friendship, hey, that longevity, we've been through ups and downs. There are tools that we can bring because we have more familiarity. We've seen other sides of that person. The problem is that when we weaponize them, it doesn't feel like a tool. It feels like a tool you're using on you. And I think that's sometimes the problem that we make. So again, man, we have to ask ourselves some questions. Again, there's still some accountability there. Even if it's the other person, don't take us off the hook. We still have to practice emotional intelligence. And there are still things that we have to do to navigate how this relationship, what do we want this relationship to look like? Because ultimately we do have a say-so, right? There's no relationship where we have to be in. We would like to preserve every relationship, but ultimately we have the last say-so in that. Finally, section 3, and this is the one, man, that I think we do not pay attention to. Again, we're talking about you, them, or the enemy. Who is the culprit, right? Usually in the beginning, if I feel it, it's you. And I'm going to double down because, again, the United States have changed. I said all the rules, the regulation, the stop sign, the yield signs. So I know all the nooks and crannies. So, if I just let that emotion go there, it's you. And I'm going to tell you why, because it's in my world. And you haven't shared anything. But here's one of the bigger ones, and this is the last one we'll talk about tonight. The invisible enemy. You're both imperfect. You're both going to make mistakes, and you're probably going to make mistakes again. That's a given part of the equation. But oftentimes, and this is the sad part about it, and sometimes that I see, we don't even give fault to that invisible enemy. We'll risk that friendship. We'll risk that relationship. We'll forget all those good things because we forget. And I am a believer. So if this is not your cup of tea, no offense, but I will speak through the Christian belief that I have. The enemy's job is to seek and destroy at all times. And what most people do not know is that the more you move forward in your goals, the more you move forward in your purpose, the more good things happen. His job is to make sure that he cancels that out. Isn't it ironic? A lot of times when we struggle and we go through and we're at each other, we think the fault has to be something's wrong from within. But that's nothing but when the enemy gets busy. Because if he can take your mind off of him and make you so focus solely on that thing like you have control on it, you'll rip each other apart. And guess what? It's not even in your control. Because he don't want you to see that good thing. He don't want you to be that happy relationship. He don't want you to stay on that job and get promoted. No, just go find another job. Start over again. Like you're not going to find another wrong there, right? He don't want that friendship to last, right? That thing was going good. And if he stayed out of it, man, God was going to come in there, bless that thing. Wait a minute. He got to put a little stank in there. And when human imperfection comes in, guess what? He goes in that thing and makes it a little bit more messier. And oftentimes, we don't even look at the fact we see the person we can see. Knowing that you having two imperfect people, but two imperfect people don't stop and say, wait a minute, what we had was good, and what we had was going on. Wait a minute, God blessed me with this job. Remember that time I was praying for that job? Now I'm going to leave it? No, wait a minute. What if this? Oh, I don't see you, but I know how you work. I know what your job is. Your job is to seek, kill, and destroy, and kill. Right? Oh, no, let's regroup. See, we can deal with our imperfection. We would put her to be able to deal with them. But that invisible enemy a lot of time comes in, and I hear people justify it. No, it's not that. It's just you. You don't have more power by yourself than the enemy. Not trying to preach it, but we're just talking. Yeah, it is him. If it wasn't him, why we try to tempt a perfect man? And guess what? We fall from perfect. If we try to tempt a perfect Jesus, you mean to tell me he don't get to all of us and we imperfect? But we quickly turn toward each other. So that's why I wanted to make sure we broke it down tonight. You, them, or the enemy. See, sometimes it can be either or. And I think we only operate in the space of you versus me. It can't be my fault, so it's you. Sometimes it's both of you. But then we also need to have the emotion to say, no, that's you. Or you know what? That's on me. Right? But there are times where we are just dealing in our imperfection and the enemy just over there stirring the pot and he's just invisible. Right? And here are some of the results of this. And it's important to understand it. And when you're watching it, some people may identify with this, right? We think it's the other person, the other person is this, and y'all both imperfect, and the enemy over there just stirring the pot. And here what come out of it. Watch this. Burnout. Oh, them emotions is going, and ain't nobody, you feel them emotions, ain't nobody feel it, ain't nobody said this, and you got to get them emotions. And so you just burn out, and sometimes we call it spaz out, and guess what? The problem is sitting over here. Now y'all just emotionally sparring. Been guilty of it myself. Right? We don't, you know, youngsters call it crashed out. We don't crashed out. And you see that with the youngsters out here. The problem is long gone. The problem was this big. But now that there's no emotional intelligence, we done burnt out, crashed out, whatever terminology you want to use. And guess what? Everything is straight emotion. And we think we're dealing with the problem. The problem is sitting here. Right? We really think we're dealing with this. And now guess what? The enemy can go. Because that's all he wanted. He just didn't want you to figure out the problem because he probably saw that blessing on the other side of that thing. He probably saw that was the person that was for you. He probably saw that was the person that you not supposed to just keep walking away. He probably saw the fact that was the job that now you can't keep starting over. That's the job where you're just supposed to go through to come out great on the other end. Anything that the enemy can do to get you to walk away from something of God and you just drop it like a bad habit. When you've seen these things, you thought these things, you worked on these things, and then he just gets us our emotions. And because those emotions, once it's so closely attached, United States of James, right? Set all the rules. Oh my God, I'm trying to fight because you're attacking this United States of James. No, you can't attack this. I'm going to shoot all type of missiles and everything. And the problem is sitting over there. See how it go? All because we didn't recognize that invisible enemy. He just put burnout in there. Move the problem out the way, and now we just emotionally sparring. Unspoken expectations. Kind of talked about that a little bit. Now we see the other person's weakness or area of opportunity, and we still going to expect them. Ever had a supervisor like that? Like I said, this being in a relationship. They know you're going through something. You come holler at a man on some real, right here, I need you to be understanding. And they still strong. No type of empathy. Third level pillar of emotional intelligence. Matter of fact, they use that opportunity to set unfair expectations on you. Hey, look, man, my car got towed. My car's not working. I got to catch the public train. I got to catch Uber, and that's running late. Then I'm hitting traffic. Well, you can't be late no more. That's unfair expectation. Your car got stolen. Your car is down, right? And watch this. We even do it sometimes in relationships. Okay, we see the imperfection in that person. Again, that's a part of that 20. But we still want the expectation just because we seeing different. We still want them come to that. We don't have no grace. Uh-oh. God didn't wake us up with some grace. But we do that with people, right? Unfair expectations. So that's why I say start with yourself. You can be right and have the right idea, but you can have the wrong process. Somewhere before, you didn't have that grace. You didn't have it all together, right? But someone gave you grace. If nobody else, God did, until you was able to get it right. So yeah, even if that person erring their own expectation, give grace. That doubling down in the whole 9 yards, we're setting unspoken expectation, and now we're disappointing ourselves. That's not fair. Now we're holding that person feet to the fire, right? They can't go through their true process of understanding, learning, growing, and healing. And then internalized fear or imposter syndrome. Now, this is one I think a lot of us deal with more than we think. Because everybody hard. I ain't fearful. No, I ain't dealing with no fear. I ain't scared of nothing. That's not the fear I'm talking about. Right? Because if we really identify that true enemy that shows up invisible at times, we'd understand that there should be a fear there that make us go run to God, but I digress, or our higher power, or help, right? But usually because we walk around and we just so fearless, well, guess what? I ain't never believed that everybody who got injured, everybody who got shot, got robbed, was because they was fearless. That's not the criteria. But a lot of times we don't want to share our vulnerabilities. So what we do, we internalize that fear. Like we talked about before, I don't want to talk to baby girl. Man, she look good and I don't want her to leave me. So you're teaching her that it's okay to do that wrong thing. And in her defense, she may or may not know, or she may start manipulating on it against you. That healthy? Or supervisor, use that fear of firing you. Or you having a fear, I don't want to lose my job, so I better just sit here and take it. I'm a man before anything. No, we're gonna have to let's get to it to get through it. Miss Supervisor. It's a right way that I can address you, but that internal fear causes us to mute ourselves. Or even relationship, man, we've been together, we've been rocking when I don't want to mess that up. What if you've been together that long? You should be able to get to it to get through it. Because if you can't, then y'all just had time you spent, right? So nothing should justify internalizing that fear. If anything, we should have the capacity to know how to emotionally and intelligently operate in that fear to where it does not paralyze us. And then imposter syndrome, man. How many people walk around dealing with their representative, but they think they know themselves? You ever met somebody who really believe they are who they are, but they really are imposters? They really want to be themselves, but they've learned to just bottle themselves up or just bubble wrap themselves up because they fear for being hurt again, right? And so they've learned that, and I'm gonna lie, I used to be that, right? I didn't want people to see my weaknesses. I didn't want to see people to see that I grew up poor or how I grew up. I didn't want them to see my past. So I just became who they wanted me to be. My LB and we talk about it all the time. I'm just gonna be this character. As a matter of fact, give away a freebie tonight. If you ever be around my college friends, they used to call me Roscoe. That was that character. In all due respect, I hate that name now, to be honest. It brings back fond memories, right? But in all actuality, in my maturity, I hate that name because it reminds me of the character that I substituted, even at times where I should have just been myself. But I didn't want to lose friends. I want to make sure everybody liked me. So that imposter syndrome is dangerous because then if you give the other person fake, but you want them to see the real you, how that work out? That doesn't make sense, right? So internalizing that fear, I think a lot of times we don't accept accountability for that, right? And that's what makes us lash out or all or none, right? Well, I'll just go on Herman, just cut, and we justify why it's easy for me to cut somebody out. You're fearful. You're fearful of being hurt, so you're trying to cut the cord before they cut it, instead of doing some true conflict resolution, right? We find ways to popularize and justify all these little cute sayings, but really we're dealing with real stuff, man, when it's all said and done. The enemy can make us doubt ourselves. He can pit us against each other and keep us from growing. Again, a lot of time we forget to keep the main thing the main thing. Conflict resolution is so important. He sees us growing. He sees us getting better. See, that's the thing about us. We may be in a season or a valley that it looks like, man, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go straight to jail. And that may be the reality of that season. But we forget, and again, I don't apologize for my faith. We serve a God that's just temporary. That was the minor setback for the major comeback. But the enemy will come down there, and he knows that now. He knows you're only supposed to do 2 days. But he can mentally make you stay in there for the rest of your life. You can be out the situation. You can be out the bad relationship, in a relationship with someone who really is down for you, but mentally you're treating that person because you're fearful of the bad situation you came out of. God can bless you with a new job, but you're operating on that job as if you still got a bad supervisor like your old job. And a lot of times we don't think we're doing, because again, the United States with James Hester, we set all the rules. That's why it's good to not have a lot of yes men around you and have some people around you that challenge you, right? It's good for you to challenge yourself. All my thoughts is not right. I keep people around me, whether it's business or pleasure. I'm a phone call away that I know I can objectively ask them, and guess what, pour into me. Now, if it lines up with me being right, fine. But if not, I have the luxury to learn in that moment. It's okay with that. It don't hurt, right? And so we have to understand how that invisible enemy can come in and pit us against each other. And that we just lock in on those emotions, forget about all the good, or even in that moment, go temporarily insane on the good things. The enemy now can go on about his business. He's already invisible, and we damn sure not going to see when he go. And guess what? We now locked in with these emotions, messing up the very thing that we sat around one day and prayed to God about. Man, I'm praying to God for this job. I'm driving to the job. I done prayed sitting in the parking lot. I done prayed before the interview. I done prayed driving back. I done prayed getting home. I done prayed looking at the phone. Phone call finally come through. They say they hired, and then we go full circle. Guess what? It's the supervisor's fault. What if I told you something God made for us to go to grow through? So even if that pitting against each other, what if the goal was for us to come out of it better on the other side? Mama, daddy, son, brother, aunt, niece, friend to friend. Don't give the enemy the credit and the opportunity to do something damaging, even though we can't see it. So we talked about you, them, and the enemy. Who's the culprit? We've seen sometimes it can be ourselves, sometimes it can be the other person, but more importantly, there are times where more often than not, it can be the invisible person. But through all of this, notice we left a lot of cliffhanging questions, right? And sometimes that can be problematic because it leaves everybody open for their own interpretation. And like I said, everybody got these many worlds, right? So what is the solution? How do we reclaim our power? Because at the end of the day, I would love for Elder Faye Hester to agree with me. That's my mother, and you guys continue to pray for her, right? I would love that. But I can only reclaim my power. I love James Hester Jr. Love that boy. But ultimately, in the end, I can only reclaim my power. So we're going to close with learning how can we reclaim our power, whether it's me, whether it's the other person, or even if it's the invisible enemy. How can I regain my power? We all have our 20%. We all have our imperfection. How can I reclaim my power? Short story, focus on my 80. Own your part. Not the guilt, but the growth. I always say, let's get to it to get to it. Get through it, right? I don't have to be guilty. It's not a life sentence, but I got to own my growth. And in part of owning my growth, I was wrong, right? I was wrong in that. That's the first person I got to look at. First step, pillar of emotional intelligence, self-awareness. Even if the other person wrong, I don't have to own the guilt. I see that guilt is what the enemy can use to just grow at like a seed, and do damage to us. Okay, I'm wrong, but I want to own the growth. I want to use this opportunity. How can I make sure I do not get back on this level? And a lot of time in this day and age, it's so easy to throw relationships away over emotion. If I feel that, it must be that down the drain. I know people job hop. Again, people relationship hop. So easy to do that, to hold on to that. I don't want to be wrong, so to speak, right? So we don't have to own the guilt. We want to own the growth, though. Call out dysfunction respectfully but firmly. Oh, my God. If you cannot offer constructive criticism in any circle that you with, if you cannot take constructive criticism, that me too, that gaslighting, well, what about you? That's it's unhealthy, it's toxic. You're not wrong all the time coincidentally when the other person did wrong. And they're not wrong coincidentally at the same time you've done wrong. No, that's deflecting. That's the terminology it is. Well, what about you? When you go to the doctor and the doctor's trying to help you, you don't tell the doctor, well, what about your health? Come on now. That ain't how that go. That's deflecting. Own it. Right? Do some time to really think about it. Look at it objectively. Right? So call out that dysfunction. You should have a healthy relationship where, guess what? It's okay to agree to disagree, but it's not okay to tolerate disrespect. It's not okay to tolerate what you know that to be wrong, right? Like I told you about the supervisor. You told him your situation. Now I'm going to make sure that if you late again, well, you know I'm going to be late again. No, that's dysfunction. I came and told you my situation, right? Just like when your mate come and opens up to you or any relationship, hey, I did that. This is where I'm coming from. Well, I'm going to be me. You need to run and leave that because that person has put a stake in the ground more than an opportunity to compromise and grow together, right? So you have to call out that dysfunction. That should be a part of any healthy relationship. And it's not only at a time where that Me Too syndrome. No. If you're wrong and we talking about that or you made a mistake, okay, let's get to it to get through it, man. We don't have to throw that back and forward with each other, especially when we're in position of power, like when we're at work and we're supervising over people and we know we got the power of the pen, as I always say, for us, man. No, that's the time to use empathy. Third, a pillar of emotional intelligence. Challenge the enemy, whether it's a toxic system or a limiting belief. This is the one, like I say again, it's so hard to do because it's all the time got to be the person in front of us. And the enemy is seeking all the time to destroy anything good. As a matter of fact, I tell people when something is about to go good, while we celebrating, the enemy is rubbing his Birdman rug. Yeah. See, as long as we ain't doing nothing, as long as we ain't walking in our gift and we just kind of, whatever, whatever, you're no threat to the enemy. But when you get active, when you get intentional, when something just don't get you off your course, oh, he got to get active. Because he know with God's help, you just might succeed. And that ain't what the enemy wants. So y'all, sometimes we kind of, look within ourselves. Look at the other person and handle that. If that's you, that's you. If that's me, that's me. But we also better be able to start having that healthy conversation on that third entity, the enemy. And we have to be able to call that out. Toxic behavior, limiting belief, not allowing us to grow. United States of James House, that's what them rules are. Get some people around you of great influence. Let healthy people get around you. If you want to grow a garden, get some gardeners around you. You cannot convince me that you know how to tend to a garden if you have no gardeners around you. I'm not getting on an airplane with you and you hang with no pilots. You cannot walk in a courtroom with me and defend me before a judge if I don't see you around lawyers. See, that's accountability. You can say some lawyer terms, but if there are no facts on the table to where you try some cases, I can't let you get in here and risk my life, right? So you have to have some accountability there. Most importantly, choose action over blame. Instead of throwing that stick in the ground, leave an opportunity to work it out. Now, again, we want to put an answer here. I don't mean give someone a chance to run over you. We all have our limitations. And sometimes you just have to agree to disagree and move to the, as my mama said, best of kins got apart. We can't exist in this space, right? And again, that could be seasonal, that could be long-term, but hey, in this space right now, maybe we got to do some self-reflection, then we can kind of come back and see each other clearly. but make sure you don't hold on to the blame. What's the action? See, the train got to keep moving. We can ride. The train got to keep moving because you know why? I remember when we didn't have a train. I remember when this train had a standstill. And now that we finally got this thing chugging along, we can't afford to stop this train anymore. Right? So make sure, choose the action, not the blame. Clarity doesn't come from pointing the fingers. It comes from asking better questions. Quit being threatened by questions. I'm not talking about the sarcasm, to where people trying to, ask questions, rhetorical questions, just to kind of pitch out. But there are times where people can try to ask questions because they're really trying to clarify who you are so they can make it up in their mind how to interact and how to effectively communicate with you. So if you feel that you don't have to answer those questions, or you should already know this because in the United States of James, everyone who lives here, they know all the rules and regulations. Well, that person ain't lived there. That's why they're asking you. That's a catch-22. So they can't ask you a question, but you have an expectation of them. That doesn't make sense. And it's in these moments where the enemy is just dropping seeds. And you out there fertilizing, and again, you think it's the problem. No, the problem is over here. You just fertilizing emotions. And we already said what emotions are. Raw emotion. Two flints rubbing up against each other. At some point in time, it's going to spark, right? Look, you guys, I want to thank you all for joining us here tonight. You, them, or the enemy. Who's the Culprit? Unfiltered Kings podcast. This is a podcast where men and women try to talk to each other, not at each other, right? And so as we went through tonight, we can understand, man, like there's some time where we got to take the blame, look at ourselves, right? We got to have some accountability about ourselves. Even if there's some time where it's the other person, we still got to have some accountability for ourselves. But then also we have to start identifying this third party. And we have to start assigning them their responsibility of the negativity. And that's the enemy, right? We can't let him come into these relationships and tear down what God has allowed us to bless up, things God has blessed us with. Again, jobs. Again, moving forward in dysfunctional family where we now have repaired family ties that have taken us from apart. We have to cherish these things and realize, hey, man, we just operating in our imperfection. We can get to that to get through that. But we better do something with this enemy out here that we out here not turning our attention to, and we just looking at each other. We better start preparing for him because he don't fight for. And I guarantee you, he fight for the death. And I guarantee you, he don't always just wait in bad moments. No, sometimes he wait in the good moments. Because he's more threatened about those good moments because guess what? You just may succeed. Y'all always have to be going through for the enemy to get active. You could be right on the curbs of something good, right in the good scene, and all of a sudden, here he comes, out the blue, and you just see the people around him, right? So I hope this one has been good for you. Remember, you can always watch this. If you didn't catch us live tonight, you can always catch us on Spotify, Amazon Music. You can catch us on YouTube. Also, if you have any questions, remember, leave your comments. We keep our inboxes open. They are set up to where they are a safe space. So confidentiality is of the utmost importance as a certified life coach. And so, or if you just want to reach out directly and be discreet that way, whatever it is, we want to not only try to answer your question, but if we don't have the answer, I want to be able to get them in the hands of someone who can help you probably in a better situation than me. With that being said, again, I cannot thank you all again. Season 4 is underway. You guys, I don't understand. You understand what a blessing is. 4 seasons. And when I tell you this is a labor of love, it is a labor of love. But we trying to make sure we're going to show up. If it's one person, we owe you the best side of what this podcast stands for. So again, if you've been rocking with us from day one, matter of fact, some of y'all been out there rocking with us since the concept, the Bostons and everything in the world, where we were just talking about it, man, and just what type of mic do we use? We was that early in the game. All the way to now, if this is your first time tuning in to Unfiltered King podcast, whether you like it, love it, even if you have some critique of it, we're not afraid of that. Share that information. It can only make us better if it makes sense, right? But I want to, again, genuinely thank each and every one of you who took time out of your busy Thursdays. We've been doing it on Thursdays right now and decided to tune in, whether that's part-time or whole time. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. Again, this is the Unfiltered Kings podcast, Unfiltered Kings of the Queen podcast. This is where we have conversations to each other, not at each other. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Until next time, make sure you tune in. We got some great things coming. I wish I could talk about it tonight, but I'm not too much prepared. Of course, I'm one man in it tonight because we had some technical difficulties. But man, look, we have some huge things that I want you guys to be a part of, and we couldn't have done it without you all. So stay tuned in, stay locked in. Unfiltered Kings of the Kings podcast. You, them, or the enemy? Who's the culprit? One of y'all, some of y'all, all three of y'all together. Y'all take it easy now.